Well, thank you very much for joining us. We're almost at the end of today's broadcast, and I can't think of a better way of wrapping up the day than a conversation with Deborah Weinswig. Deborah, it's a pleasure to see you again. You joined us, wow, I can't believe it was on the first day. It was last Monday. Feels like an age away.
I mean, when it comes to Double 11, right, Dave, we've seen so far this year, just in terms of, right, number of consumers, number of new products. I think even what we've heard anecdotally from a sales perspective, right? I mean, it really has been quite a journey, but at the same time, I mean, the numbers are all incredibly positive.
Well, Deborah Weinswig, the founder and CEO of Coresight Research. What do you see thus far in 11/11?
I mean, we've seen, I think it's almost 100 million more consumers who are participating, which is, right, that's a big, that's like a third of the US population, right? I mean, that's a big number. We've seen kind of many more, if you will, merchants and brands participating as well. And then, you know, what we've heard anecdotally as we've spoken to all the platforms, and we've also surveyed consumers as well, is that, you know, the sales, and especially you've got kind of these two, you know, if you will, pre-sales periods, however you're kind of characterizing them before the like kind of build up to the big day, that has really kind of been, you know, kind of incredibly helpful. And right, last year the consumer was educated and on this kind of new approach to Double 11. And this year, right now that they know and they experienced before, they're kind of, if you almost in some ways like tempering their spending and planning, I guess is more the way to approach it. But it's like you've got your kind of first pre-sale period and you've got your kind of second period, and then, you know, kind of waiting for the big day. And so what we've seen, I think, is much greater numbers and, you know, kind of what many would have expected, which is phenomenal.
I mean, overall, how do you think it's going? I mean, 100 million new consumers to 11/11 is staggering in one extent. We haven't seen a lot of numbers coming out of Alibaba so far in terms of sales. I'm not certain if we will see those types releasing those types of numbers. But, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place it?
I mean, if I were to scale it, I mean, you know, hey, 10 is like a moonshot, 8.5, 8.5 seems to be right. You know, it's really good and probably exceeds expectations, because I would say, right, if we look at kind of like a bell curve with a 5, I would say it's better than we would honestly have expected. And, you know, we've certainly continued to see those KOLs drive very strong results, right? Both Austin and Via, I think, sold almost $20 billion worth of, 20 billion won worth of product through their kind of 13-hour live streaming.
Yeah, 20 billion, I mean, RMB between them. I mean, it's staggering, isn't it? I mean, I should really do the maths and work out how much that is per minute or per hour, but it is a staggering amount.
I mean, it was interesting, actually. David, you and I were just talking about Marathon Sunday in New York here yesterday. For the first time, I actually took a lot of photos, and everybody, it was fascinating, right? Because live streaming is like my passion. That's like my side hustle, learning more about live streaming, which is maybe a sad state of things. But there were, for the first time I've ever seen, there were people kind of like lined up outside of Central Park live streaming. And it was, I mean, there's something, I actually chatted with them because I wanted to know more. And they actually said they were all doing it for Double 11. So I do think, and hey, that's right, kind of one anecdote, but this idea of just how much more it's kind of truly gone global. And right, that they would have expected that I knew what Double 11 was also, right, kind of a really interesting kind of, I think it says a lot about kind of this umbrella that's really been provided for people everywhere to kind of try new things, new approaches. I mean, right, think about like the amount of like new product that's been created specifically for Double 11, whether it was through like, you know, TMIC at Alibaba or through kind of other kind of relationships and partnerships. I spoke to, you know, kind of a reporter last week for actually quite a long time. And it was interesting to kind of help them understand. It's like you almost get permission, right, to kind of really test and learn. I think during the shopping festival, we've seen that, I think, more so this year than ever before. And I think it really is unbelievable because it gives a lot of these Western brands, right, the opportunity to try things I don't think they'd ever get the opportunity to do so without Double 11.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. We were talking this morning in our live to China slot, where we spoke to one of our WPP companies, Ogilvy's, and they were saying that the laydown that you were talking about, sort of the pre-sales period and then the sales period and another pre-sales period, actually has enabled a better sort of mix between things that are done offline and things that are done online. And there are a whole series of sort of experiences, offline experiences that brands are creating in order to create the buzz and the excitement in the pre-order phase that are very physical. And then in a sense, the consumers move on to the virtual in order to purchase. And I thought that was a really interesting, sort of understanding of how China is able to mix the online and the offline, and be a very interesting way of, creative way of being able to use the new laydown of 11/11.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, talking to a lot of the brands, they've always said that the offline is much bigger and better than anyone ever kind of really talks about from a media perspective. So I feel like 3 years ago, right, there was kind of a, another focus on physical, then we've seen that continue to build up. But I think that, what's been interesting is around a lot of these loyalty programs that are happening for the first time. And there is like this gamification around being kind of in a physical store, right, just kind of shopping all what we would say in the West, right, all channels, but truly shopping with like online and offline. And then you've got, I think so many more KOLs. I think some of the data I read was like kind of over 700, right, KOLs like featured in these different live stream sessions. And then, I also was really impressed with, especially as like we in the US are still kind of finding our footing as it relates to what does sustainability mean and how to approach it and how to kind of talk about it. I mean, I personally believe that because this is so important to the consumer and that Alibaba is very specific about what they're doing and how to measure it, right? David, the trick is always, do you give a date and a number? They gave both. And right from like an analyst perspective, I'm like, wow, because that really does say something about how confident they are that, the consumer really is like, they want it, they're going to respond to it, and that they themselves, right? I think I read about, I'm sure you have as well, some of the recycling that's taking place this year.
Yeah.
And, those kinds of, we don't see anything like that in the West.
The other thing I think that struck me quite a lot was just the virtual experiences that are being played around with, the platforms that Alibaba have created for brands to experiment with. I mean, to your point, you can experiment in ways that you couldn't do in other markets around the world. I mean, do you see that those environments, although small now, will have a big impact going forward?
I do. I mean, especially I would say at least 2 and probably 3 times a day, I'm personally asked by executives, right, do you really think that there's something to this live streaming? And I think anything that can give, great examples. And I truly believe, which I think is very special about this 11/11, right? The loyalty aspect, personalization, customization, gamification, all from like a live streaming perspective. That this is what, right? We at Coresight had estimated live stream commerce in China to be about $300 billion this year. I think that the numbers will exceed that based on what we're seeing with 11/11. And the West, for all of North America, right, US and Canada, we're talking like $14 billion. So we have a long way to go, but the Western brands are learning so much and at such a speed from kind of 11/11 that I think it could accelerate. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Well, given all of that then, what are you looking to for the last sprint from Monday to Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, we're like right in that sprint, right? I mean, we've talked to many brands who have said that, at this point, it's really kind of pushing the envelope, right? They felt like they had kind of already gotten there, and then based on the results that they've achieved, they're like, maybe we can kind of just do a little bit more. And I think that more is around kind of talking, like messaging, right? I mean, because at this point, so much of the foundation has already been laid, right? You're not getting new products into the system or anything like that. But they've said that the response they've seen to kind of sustainability has exceeded their expectations, and actually kind of developing conversations with consumers that they've never had before. This also focus on, let's just say, being more inclusive And I think that while that's a global phenom, once again, Double 11 has given a lot of these retailers kind of a view into what can be done and the sales, right? I mean, at the end of the day, right, as we think about kind of inclusive markets, right, whether it's kind of, sizing or kind of adaptive products or whatever it might be, there's a commerce perspective here. And I think that, we're starting to see these brands in the West really kind of understand that very early. And then just what we're seeing in some of the kind of lower tiered cities, and I think the sales have been generated there. So I think it's just kind of pulling on like a string and seeing kind of what else, because they really want to learn. And right, the sales have been there, I think, once again, in many cases, better than expected. So right in in the last kind of, if you will, kind of piece of this festival, what is it that the retailers can learn, especially as we're for the first time really in the middle of like the holiday season in the West, because of many of the supply chain issues. And once again, we've also heard that one of the reasons, right, for the reason, the kind of scheduling, right, pre-sale and whatnot, was to really get packages to consumers in a kind of very short window. And I think that the importance of that and understanding that in the West and pulling holiday forward, I think is really critical. So we've learned a lot, and I think we still have a lot to learn this Double 11 festival in terms of how much the consumer is kind of, interested in some of these social issues and the impact positively that's having on sales.
Well, Deborah, it's always a delight to get your insights. So thank you very much indeed for joining us again for the first day of last week of 11/11, and an unshameable plug. Deborah and I will be running a session in December. We'll send you the dates soon on the 6 key retail trends that could make or break you in 2022. So we'll be back for that. We'll give you the details of that. But Deborah, for the moment, hold on. Everyone needs to hold on to their hats. I think Thursday will be an amazing day in China for 11/11. Deborah Weinswig, the founder of Coresight Research, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thanks, David.